Okay, hi, good morning. Good morning, Europe, Africa, Middle East. Good afternoon, Asia. Good night, whoever. Thank you for coming. My name is Amir Aharoni. This is the WikidataCon 2021 session about global templates and what the future holds and how is it all connected to Wikidata and how can we collaborate better around this. So I made several presentations about this recently at Wikimania and at the Russian Wikimedia Conference and the North American Wikimedia Conference, but people asked me to do another one here for Wikidata and see how it's related to Wikidata. So I'm going to do a very quick presentation about what the general idea of global templates is. I refer you to the other presentations that I made. They are recorded for much more details about what the idea of global templates is. And here I'm going to do only a brief presentation of what this is. So for more details, see the other ones at these links that you can see. Go to MediaWiki.org, global templates, and especially global templates/status. It has several more videos and presentations. If you have questions about this, by all means do ask, but the general idea will be presented briefly. After the brief presentation at the beginning, I want to have a discussion about how can we collaborate better across the different projects with Wikidata and across different Wikipedias and across all the wikis, including Wikisource and Wiktionary and so on. So let's start from the general idea. The general idea is that many of the most visible features of our wikis are implemented by the editors, the editor community of each wiki, and they're implemented as templates. Also as modules, I'm mostly going to speak about templates, but templates and modules are essentially go together for most of the things. So some examples, some famous examples of templates are Infoboxes, and you can see here examples of an Infobox about the same person in the Wikipedia article in the English Wikipedia and the Russian Wikipedia. You can see that their design is generally similar. There are some small differences, but the general idea, the general functionality and design are very similar. It has an image, it has the name, it has some labels, it has some values. The general idea is similar. Another very famous example of a template is citation needed. A very iconic thing, exists in many, many languages. Here you can see Russian and English and French and Japanese and Bengali. Exists in many, many other languages. And one final example is formatted references. Basic references, they don't need templates. It's just a tag, which is not the same as not the same as template, but almost all references, they have some formatting. And this formatting with a link and the fonts and where to show the first name and the last name and the title and the year and so on, this formatting is done by templates, very ubiquitous. Now, I give you just 3 examples of some types of templates, but there are hundreds of thousands. This is the number of pages in the template namespace in some languages, Wikipedia in some languages. You can see that it's well over 500,000 in English. Now, a lot of these pages are actually not template pages, but documentation pages or testing pages or something like that, but still, that's a lot. So I gave you just some of the most basic examples, and these are visible features. And the problem with them, the huge problem with them is that the code of the templates is replicated across wikis, even if the functionality is similar. Now, here is how it is connected to Wikidata. Now, this text comes from the Wikidata Strategy document from 2019. Now, I wrote these slides before yesterday, and yesterday a new Wikidata Strategy was published. I haven't yet had time to read through it, so I hope that this is still relevant. This is from 2 years ago. This is from 2019. So in 2019, it identifies this problem, this strategic problem that Wikidata has, that getting data and truly benefiting from Wikidata requires a lot of effort and technical knowledge. And this is given as a specific example in the text of that strategy document, that they require skills in template and Lua programming. Lua programming is for modules, which are similar to templates, just in a different programming language, that especially smaller projects often lack. Now, smaller projects are in opposition to larger projects. So larger projects are English Wikipedia and French Wikipedia and Russian and Spanish and Portuguese and Japanese Wikipedia. And all of these big wikis, they have people enough people who can maintain templates, write the wiki text, write the Lua code for modules. The smaller projects, they often don't have such people, and it very often comes up as an issue. People very often ask me, so how can we have infoboxes? We want to translate articles from English or French or Russian to our language, but how do we insert the infoboxes? And this is an issue. This comes up repeatedly, and I always say that this is the most important problem. Now, when I say that this is the most important problem, it's kind of boring because templates, it's like it's something internal, it's something technical, it's something for, you know, more technical oriented people. And the thing is that by itself, it's not actually the most important problem, but resolving this problem will allow the resolution of much bigger problems that actually address lots, actually concern lots of people. Newcomer experience. A newcomer to Wikipedia or Wikisource or Wiktionary or even Wikidata, they don't usually know what is a template, like what strange thing is it? But they do have to deal with this. They do have to deal with this when they simply edit articles or when they want to translate something from another language. How about information verification? We repeatedly have these, especially recently, we have some news stories about problems of misinformation in some languages. Obviously, some of you heard some of these stories about the Croatian Wikipedia and the Japanese Wikipedia and so on. This is a problem. Sharing templates will not resolve these problems, but it will help collaborate across languages in resolving these problems. So what is the solution that I suggest? And the solution that I suggest is to make it possible to store templates, the code of the templates, in a shared repository. This would be similar to Wikimedia Commons, storing images and videos on Wikimedia Commons, or storing structured data on Wikidata, but it will be for the templates code. If a template is not found in the local wiki, it will be taken from the common shared templates repository. Similarly to how if there is no local image on the wiki, an image will be taken from the Commons shared repository. We kind of have global images, we just don't call them global images, we call them Wikimedia Commons. Now, just a quick note, templates have a lot of strings, and these strings obviously have to be translated. Without going deeply into the details, the translation of the strings in the templates will work similarly to how it works with MediaWiki extensions on translatewiki.net. So it will be something similar to that, because currently to translate templates, you have to go carefully through the wiki text and find all the strings and translate them. When templates are global, you won't have to do this any longer because all the strings will be just separate from the code, from the wiki text code, and you will be able to translate them nicely without breaking anything and without having to search for the strings. Now, again, Wikidata, some people sometimes say, why do you need global templates? We can just use Wikidata for everything. Wikidata is already global. And the problem with that is that, indeed, Wikidata is global, but Wikidata is for data. Wikidata is for values of properties, and for labels, labels can be translated, and data is the same in all the languages, but that's just data. That's not exactly code. The design, the appearance of the template, Wikidata cannot really handle this. You need the wiki text code or the Lua code to bring in, to pull the information from Wikidata and to present it in the wiki. For that, you need templates or modules. So the logic and the design of the template, that cannot really be stored in Wikidata alone, certainly not on item pages. So for that, you need something else. You need another repository for the code of the templates. So probably the most frequently asked question by people is, do you want to force the templates from English Wikipedia on our Wikipedia? And absolutely not, no. And not just because I think it's, like, I honestly think it's wrong. It's really not my intention, and I don't think that this is anybody's intention, but people often ask this, and absolutely no, this is not the intention. Also because there is a lot of great innovation, and we'll speak about this later, I hope, in the discussion. There's a lot of great innovation in templates in the various languages, in Hebrew and in Russian and in Japanese and in Chinese and in French. I saw a lot of that. And I wish that templates from other languages would be discovered by the editors of the English Wikipedia. And another very common question, this usually comes from the bigger languages like English and German, and sometimes Russian and sometimes Hebrew. Do you want to force information from other languages to be shown in our language? And other languages, we don't trust them. They have bad policies about verification and sources. And again, the answer, as I hope you guess, the answer is absolutely no. If you don't want any data and you don't want any design, any appearance from other languages in your language, don't do this. Much like you don't have to use images from commons, you can use local images. Just like that, you can keep using local templates and local design and local data. If you don't trust data from Wikidata, don't use it. That's fine. So so these are the very frequently asked questions. Again, for more information about the idea of global templates, I refer you to other presentations that I've done recently. Before I move to discussion, just a few notes about this. Almost all of this is an idea. It's a proposal. It's a suggestion. It's not yet a project. But some things are already being done. So one project that is already being developed is called Translatable Modules. So I, in my day job, I am in the team in the Wikimedia Foundation, which is called the language team, and we develop several things, several projects for making it easier to read and write Wikimedia projects in various languages. Our best known project is content translation. Another thing that we're doing is called Translatable Modules. And this is an addition that will make translating the strings in Lua modules more robust. This will not yet make them global, but this will hopefully make the modules easier to translate, especially on sites like Wikidata and Commons and Meta and MediaWiki.org, sites that are already multilingual. And currently they have all the translations of the strings and the modules in Lua code, which is very hard to maintain and very brittle and very easy to break. So this will make them more robust to translate. Eventually, when we have global templates, this will be the way to translate the text in global templates. Another related project, which is in early stages of not even development, but more like research, it's called template translation. I put it in quotes because it's not a very good name. It would be better to call it template adaptation. That is the #1 wish in the last community wish list vote. And the idea here is that for those of you who are familiar with the content translation extension, which allows people to translate articles from language to language, then you may know that it is able to translate some templates automatically, to adapt some templates automatically from language to language. But this functionality is only available in content translation. This project will make it available also in Visual Editor and Wikitext Editor. So again, it's not yet really global templates, but it's something like it's a step towards global templates. Finally, I really want to mention Abstract Wikipedia, which is really not the same project, but it has kind of comparable goals. The functions of Abstract Wikipedia and Wiki functions, they will be like they are code like templates, and they will be stored in the central repository. So it's not the same. The Abstract Wikipedia has different goals. It's Abstract Wikipedia is more for generating prose, but nevertheless, there are similarities. Abstract Wikipedia functions are code. They are stored in the shared repository, so maybe there is some commonality between the two projects. And the last thing is SiteQ, which is developed by the community. SiteQ is an example of one template that is used on quite a lot of pages in the English Wikipedia and many other languages. It shows citations, references with information pulled from Wikidata. And I mentioned this because the developers of SiteQ specifically said that they intentionally develop it in a way that will make it easy to share it across projects in the future when it is actually possible to make it global. So this attitude is really great, and I wish that all the template developers would adopt this attitude, and we'll speak a bit more about this in a few minutes, I hope. Now, infrastructure. This may seem like the elephant in the room. We don't yet have the infrastructure for actually have a repository for global templates. This will have to be developed. However, this is not the real elephant in the room, because developing the infrastructure, it's a project which has a pretty clear definition. It has a pretty clear beginning and end, and it will take some time and some developer effort, but this will be done sooner or later, and it will be done, and then it will become available, and then what? Because once it's available, the people who develop templates in different languages, they will have to start actually using it and sharing it. Now, I wrote some very rudimentary ideas about how will this transition happen. It's on MediaWiki.org, global templates/transition. You're very, very welcome to look at that page and improve it. I invite everybody to do that. And I go back here to the 2019 strategy of Wikidata, which a new strategy was published yesterday. I hope this 2019 strategy is still relevant in some way. But another quotation from the 2019 strategy is that the movement consists of multiple separated projects, separated wikis, separated by language, separated by wiki goals. This leads to fractured communities. Now, how do we make them less fractured? Because Wikidata requires, I don't like this word very much, requires, but it's balanced by requires separate projects to work together to some extent. And this, I would love to see the some extent of collaboration to be bigger. I'm not saying that all the projects should be merged. Some people do. I definitely don't. I like the autonomy that every project has, but more collaboration in Wikidata in general, and then templates in particular, can be really beneficial to everybody. So thank you for listening. And here I hope that the other participants of the panel will join and enable their video and audio. I welcome questions. I'm looking at the chat and I'm looking at the Etherpad. We have many more minutes to discuss this. And the discussion that I really hope to have now with the rest of the panel is how can we make templates that pull information from Wikidata in different languages be more similar in all the wikis. So that's it. Everybody's welcome. And let's take a quick look at the Etherpad. No questions yet. That's okay. Anything in the chat? Ooh, I see people typing. In the meantime, all the other panel participants, you're welcome to connect your audio and video.
Hello.
Yes, hello, Mike. Hello, TPT.
Hello.
Hello, Kimmo. So Mike Peel develops templates in English Wikipedia and Commons especially. And Kimmo develops templates in the Finnish Wikipedia and TPT in the French Wikipedia and Sergey in the Russian Wikipedia and also a lot of other languages that are related to Russia. So welcome all of you. So I see a question. I see a comment from Lea from Wikimedia Deutschland, and she says, regarding 2019 strategy, all statements you quoted would still be considered true. Thank you. Thank you for the confirmation. In case anyone wondering, the new strategy, yes, so there's a link to the new strategy. Yeah, I haven't yet time to read it. So yeah, so I think that while we're waiting for more questions, perhaps all the panel participants, maybe you could give a few examples of how Infoboxes with Wikidata are used in your languages. And are there any special features? Have you checked how Infoboxes are implemented in other languages and what could be similar, what could be different, and so on?
Sure, if you want, we could start from French Wikipedia. So
sure.
I believe we were a quite early adopter of Wikidata-based Infoboxes. And so what we did is that we created a system where you have a basic Infobox Lua module that is able to connect with Wikidata. And then we created some kind of a definition system for Infoboxes that is basically a big Lua table saying there should be any images. There should be a field, for example, for the birth date with with this given Wikidata property and so on, and then the centralized module generates automatically the info box. So the migration to this system is still ongoing. So because we were quite early, it's homegrown and not based on any system, not the Wikipedia. But I believe it has been quite reused and simplified also with Wikidata data box module that is used in a few very small Wikipedias. So here is for my part.
So maybe I continue. So in Finnish Wikipedia, we copied the French Wikipedia's Infobox system there a couple of years ago. And technically, it's works quite well. But kind of that the French system is complex in terms of how many files there are. It's hard to maintain. That is clear one thing what is there. And something which is unique in Finnish Wikipedia, I think that we are one of the rare Wikipedias which are using Wikidata for validating the human values, which are Wiki editors added to the info boxes. So we have checks for the birth and death dates and such things. And we are expecting that labels are somehow same than what is in the Wikidata, an example. And one big public outcry is that if there is no Finnish localized label text from the Wikidata, and people don't like it. So we have also checking that before showing the values, there should be Finnish label also. So that's mine.
Probably I can continue. We have almost the same situation as French Wikipedia. We have our own complex system of Wikidata info boxes, and also we have our own template that's similar to Databox. We already planned to merge it somehow with French Wikipedia, but still it's slightly different projects that works in different language Wikipedias. So, and yeah, we use Wikidata for a lot of purposes. We use it for categorization of some errors in data in info boxes. We use it to show data in a lot of pages. For now, we use it almost in all pages, like more than 1 million pages in Russian Wikipedia. Maybe not for all values in info boxes, but still it works pretty well. But we still have a lot of discussions in community how we want to use it. Do we want to show only values with sources, or maybe we want to show all values, and for now we show all values, and still some people want to disable Wikidata at all. So even after all these years, yeah, we have a lot of discussions in community, and now our code a lot of simpler than it was like years ago, and probably it what I want to wish to all projects that want to implement it. Don't make a lot of pages, don't create a lot of models, try to put it as simple as small as it possible, because you don't want to copy all the templates to other Wikipedia. Nobody wants to copy like dozens of templates.
So thanks a lot. We'll get to Mike, I think, very soon. But before that, just to respond to a question from the chat, So do we have any idea so far about the willingness to adopt global templates in specific language versions of Wikipedia? I see a lot of divergence in approaches towards Wikidata-driven infoboxes, for example. Okay, so there are two questions here. So about the divergence in approaches for infoboxes, that's what the panel discussion is about. But the first part, do we have any idea about the willingness to adopt global templates in specific language versions? So for more than 2 years, I've been doing kind of a quiet campaign, mostly on MediaWiki.org, writing about what global templates, what the idea is, and how should it work, how should it look like to editors. And at some point, people started supporting it and like expressing their support. And somebody a few months ago just started creating pages in Wikipedia in some languages with specific local discussions of whether people support it or not. So there were discussions in, I remember, German and Russian and Esperanto and several other languages. I don't remember all of them. But if you go again to global templates /status on MediaWiki.org, it's like a blog updates about all the happenings. So if you go like a few months earlier, something like February or March 2021, you will see a link there to discussions in several Wikipedias. And a very brief summary of all these discussions is that almost everybody supports it in the languages where there were discussions. Probably the most notable opposition was in the German Wikipedia. There were 1 or 2 users who had exactly the same problem that I mentioned. They were afraid that English Wikipedia templates with their formatting and design will be forced on the German Wikipedia. And absolutely no, that's definitely not what's going to happen. And also in the Russian Wikipedia, there were some concerns about how the labels will be translated, because if they are not translated, they don't want them, which is totally sensible. Translation of the labels is built into the proposal. Again, I don't want to go into the technical details, but the labels and all the text will definitely be translatable to all the languages. So these are all the oppositions that I could find. And other than that, yes, there were several discussions in several languages, and it was almost everybody supports it. I hope that this answers the question. And yeah, I see that Galder joined from the Basque Wikipedia. I'd love to hear from you as well. And Mike, anything from you? Any special comments about how Wikidata is used in English Wikipedia templates and commons? You are the expert on that.
Okay, so I started off with the English Wikipedia quite a few years ago now. So that in that case, I was looking specifically at telescopes and seeing if you could convert the infoboxes completely over. This is before things really got started in other wikis, I think. So there was a lot of opposition to it. But there was a development of Wikidata IB, which was a module which means you don't have to know Lua at all to be able to access Wikidata information. It just basically takes Wikidata information, reformats it as you want, and then displays it again. So it's quite a nice modular system which you can then build up an infobox with. So on the English Wikipedia, we were using that in, say, Infobox Telescope, Infobox Observatory, and a few others like that. But it wasn't really getting much traction. But the good thing is Wikidata IB can be used globally. The other project I'm active in was Commons. So went over there and basically came up with a small infobox that was being added to Commons categories, which is now turned into quite a big infobox, which is being added to Commons categories. But this is using the module Wikidata IB approach again. So I don't have to write any Lua. I don't actually really know Lua. I know bits of it, but not much. But the advantage there is it's entirely multilingual. So Commons is a multilingual project. So everything has to be in all languages at the same time. And using Wikidata IB, pulling the information from Wikidata really enables that. So we now have one infobox which is used across 3.5 million Commons categories and just works with all topics in all languages, which is really nice. The problem then is that's great for Commons, but would really nice to see it on other wikis as well. Same with Databox, which is a similar approach, but is entirely in Lua. But then you have to copy it over onto the wikis manually, and that takes a lot of time because there's dependencies, because there's complexities like complex date, for example, for date formatting in different languages. So you can either try to wrap that all in one module and you just have to copy that, or you have to really keep the number of modules to a minimum to try to keep it portable. But if you had global templates, it would no longer be a problem. So everything would just be on one wiki and synchronized and kept up to date there as well. So maintainability is really important as well. If you make changes to the info box, you don't want to have to go and copy that across all the different languages it's being used in. You just want to update it in one place and see that roll out across the other wikis. So I'm really hoping that we get global templates at some point. I think particularly with Wikidata, it's really important because we have that multilingual information, that common shared resource that we can use to build these templates which are used across all the wikis. So I really hope the global templates becomes a thing in the future.
Thanks. I see a little discussion in the chat, which really is a good segue to the next thing I want to talk about. Galder, who writes mostly in the Basque Wikipedia, he says that the main problem with adopting global templates is not in this room, it's in the 250 plus Wikipedias which don't have any technical volunteers. So, kind of, yes. The thing is that I think that they don't have a problem with adopting global templates. I think that once there are global templates, these wikis will happily use them. Much like they use images from Commons without even thinking about this. So they won't have a problem with adopting them. The problem will be, the real big elephant in the room is the initial filling up of the repository once the repository is available. Because the templates that have the biggest demand are templates in the largest wikis, like English Wikipedia and Russian Wikipedia and French and Spanish. I think these are the biggest languages and maybe a few others. But especially these languages, because there are a lot of languages for which these 4 languages are like, the common foreign language, right? Russian is a common foreign language for the former Soviet Union. And French is a common language for many African countries. So many Wikipedias in former colonies in Africa, they would love to use French Wikipedia templates, for example, and so on. And of course, English is a very common source for translation, a very common source for templates. And they would love to use these templates. Once they become available, they will probably use them, the 250 plus projects. Making them available, getting them copied from the current Wikipedia to the global repository, that's the challenge. There's another comment which says, there's some noise from one of you. If you could mute yourself, that would be great. That somebody says in the chat, wikis that don't have tech volunteers don't have templates anyway. That's not quite true. Very often they do have templates which they copied sometime in the past from English or French or some other language, and since then it's usually unmaintained. So if it has the bugs, this actually happened many times. I noticed some really broken templates, and that was because they copied the template from the English or French Wikipedia precisely on the day that it had some bug, and this bug stayed for years. After it was already fixed in English or French or Russian, it still stays broken in that other language. That's a problem currently, and that's a problem that Global Templates is really trying to solve. One of the main problems. So yeah, that's a problem, and I see that Galder is trying to say something. So yeah, very welcome. Hello.
Hello, good day to everyone. So we are using the Basque Wikipedia, the system developed by the Catalan Wikipedia, that is actually really modular, really quite easy to use. You can do a lot of things. And the last development in the Catalan Wikipedia is templates that are translated directly from the Wikidata labels. So this makes a lot of things easier for some languages. I mean, you can actually deploy it in your language in, I don't know, which a small language, and if the labels are translated in Wikidata, your template is working. The main problem is not actually the template that is showing the data from Wikidata. That's not the main problem here. The main problem is when I started installing or deploying this in some languages. I remember the Atikamekw Wikipedia in Canada. They wanted this, so we started, and they lack module Infobox. They lack module coordinates. They lack all the templates for showing coordinates, for abbreviations, for a lot of things that are usual in many Wikipedias. They don't have module math, so you can do math things like converting units and these kind of things. So there is a wide range of modules that are actually mathematical modules that are quite easy to understand for everyone. And I would think that every Wikipedia has mainly the main module, not even change a bit of that. So this is a common infrastructure that could be easy to adopt for everyone. It's like you have here a maintained math module or template for showing coordinates or whatever. And then showing information can be trickier. So for example, the Catalan system is also providing white lists and black lists of things you don't want to show in your module, and this is quite clever because there could be local differences on how to show something. And the problem here is that the small Wikipedias, like, I don't know, 250 Wikipedias, like someone who is going to develop and maintain every module, every template, and every sub-template that is created. But if you have it global, for them it's like, okay, something's working with Wikipedia, and I don't know why. I mean, I don't know what I have to do to show an image, simply they appear. So it will be something similar, like, okay, I know that I can insert here a template and an Infobox, and this Infobox knows, because if I am in Wikidata, this is a human, then it must show a human Infobox, and if it's a place, it must show this place. And this won't be in detriment of the bigger languages, because the largest languages have their own developers, so they can show whatever you want in the way they want. But for small Wikipedias, this is really a challenge. So I will center the discussion not in, oh, what system is better, the French one or the English one or the Commons one or the Catalan one. Is, okay, can we do something really basic that covers everything we need for, I don't know, the Hausa Wikipedia that is starting? I don't know if it's starting yet, but I mean, this is an example. So for me, this will be the main idea of the central repository, not the one who now has thousands of templates, but the one who actually doesn't have a system to show coordinates. And I think this is the main topic for me is this.
So let me throw a little possibly controversial idea, and let's see like how the panel, what do the panel participants think about this? Let's imagine. So we found here, for example, that the Finnish and French Infoboxes have some common source, right? Maybe they diverged, but they have some common source. And then there's the Russian templates and the Basque and Catalan templates, which have different source but similar functionality. Now, let's imagine that we have a global templates repository, and we can create a set of modules and templates which implement, let's say, 90% of the functionality of an Infobox template, which includes Wikidata, and which makes, for example, the pooling of values optional according to their reference. So you can say, we want to pool all the data, or you can say, we want to pool only data that has a reference. Let's say that you have both options. Now, let's say that we have such a global template. Will you consider in your languages to start transitioning to this global template and giving up on the local code and retiring the local code which repeats the functionality from the common code? Will it be hard for you to say bye-bye to the code which worked well and was used on thousands of pages, and replace some of it with the common code which has the same functionality.
I guess.
Please go ahead.
Yeah.
So what I would say from the French Wikipedia is, my experience is it's starting to change the engine, but you need the painting to be the same. So if the Infoboxes looks exactly the same as the previous ones on the French Wikipedia, it would be probably quite possible to move the code to reuse the global templates code without any problems. But if you start changing the look, changing how these boxes are named, the fields and so on, people are going to complain because it's you change their habits, and it's going to be much harder and see a lot of opposition. We didn't have any problem to migrate to the Lua Infobox that are also Wikidata enabled, because basically it was still the same Infobox, looking exactly the same in the wiki text and in the rendering. But people have tried to introduce new kind of Infoboxes, that, for example, biographical Infobox that is generic for all people, and there have been a lot of backslash because it was something completely new and different.
I think from my perspective, I am looking for functionality. I'm not attached to a specific code at all. On Commons, I can see it going down fairly well, that people will adopt the new code, new global templates quite nicely. English Wikipedia is going to be a problem. So they tend to be quite conservative and quite keeping to the content which is on the English Wikipedia. There's not been too much feedback with Commons, but with Wikidata in particular, there's been a lot of negative feedback, people wanting the information to be local, not in a central repository, and I suspect that will extend to templates as well. I'm not sure how much of a problem that is, because I don't think English Wikipedia would necessarily use a lot more global templates, but it could cause a problem with migrating English Wikipedia templates into global templates. That's where I'd really view the problem as being, and then keeping them in sync or switching over completely would be a lot of drama, basically.
I think that Finnish Wikipedia situation will be kind of like French Wikipedia, as long the editing functionality keeps almost same and look and feel looks same, then there is no complaints. And from technical community perspective, I think that most of technical people will say, hell yes, we want a centralized system. Because we use kind of too much time to syncing things which are updated. Or if we don't, then they just break at sometime in the future. So we will welcome the centralized system and will switch to it.
From my perspective, even if we have 90% code implemented in global templates, we need some customization on the local level, because even when we did Infobox for Russian and Bashkir Wikipedia, we found that okay, simple thing as location names, how we display it. Do we show country first and city next, or we show city first and country next, is related to language. So these kind of things should be customizable on the local code somehow. I don't know how. If you can do this, it shouldn't be a problem to move main part of the code to the global templates.
Yeah, like this example that Sergey just brought up, this sounds like a totally valid thing to make local for each language. Because indeed, yeah, some languages write the first name first and the last name later, and in some languages it's the other way around. So that definitely that should remain local. Like I'm talking about the I don't have a precise number, but I guess it's like something like 70, 80, maybe 90% of the functionality is probably the same. And I have a question for Mike, actually. So you mentioned the English Wikipedia, the difficulties that the English Wikipedia may have. Do you think that, I guess that both things will be difficult for some people in the community, but do you have a guess which thing will be more difficult? The wiki text that people have to use while editing articles to insert an info box, or the data that is actually like the information that is actually shown to the readers? About which of these two things the English Wikipedia editors will be more sensitive? Because again, they will probably be sensitive about both, but which of these two will be harder to swallow?
So yeah, it's complicated. I think people like having the local control in individual articles for Infobox parameters, and I can't see that going away anytime soon. Separate from that is a wiki code that actually makes up the template. I think that's going to really depend on individual editors. Those that have maintained it in the past, whether they like the idea of global templates and switch over, or if they don't. In general, I think English Wikipedia has a huge problem with wasn't made here. That they really want things to be local, and they think it's big enough to make that possible, without realizing there's a lot of edge cases that get missed out with that. So we've seen that with Wikidata, that they really want information to be local. I'm hoping they'll change their minds slowly, but it's a drama-filled area that takes a lot of time, a lot of negotiations to get through, much more than on other Wikipedias, I think. And I think some of that will flow over into global templates as well, but I just don't know how much. We just have to go for it and see, basically. But the main benefit, really, I think, with global templates, as been said already, is with small wikis, less so with English Wikipedia. So it doesn't matter if English Wikipedia comes a bit later, really.
Yeah, that's exactly the conflict, the paradox. Like the benefit is usually to the smaller wikis, the clear benefit which automates almost everything for them, but and less for the larger wikis, especially English, because they already have the capacity, the people to do this. And that's really the big question of like, how can we make this how can we resolve this this paradox that to make people who don't really need this to invest some effort in this switch. I don't have an answer. If you or anybody else who is listening to this have any ideas about how to do this in a way that will keep everybody happy, that's the biggest question that I'm really interested in.
I don't think you'll keep everyone happy. I think we just have to keep the ones that are happy, and kind of convert the rest over time.
I believe also that what is important for global templates is having enough contributors to contribute templates and modules to this repository and help the smaller wikis. I don't know, but I would say that if there is enough good templates for the small wikis to have a proper set of templates that works and it is well maintained, then the goal of global templates is achieved, and we don't need to have the biggest wikis as the English, French, German Wikipedias to migrate over. It would already work, and it would be already a huge improvement.
Yeah, the thing is that if we think about templates and modules as code, and they are definitely code, people don't often think about them as code, but they are very much code, software code. We already have a lot of code which is global, which again, we just don't call it global, but it is global. And that's the code of MediaWiki and MediaWiki extensions. It's global. Nobody even thinks about it like this. But the problem is that editors of individual wikis, most of them don't contribute to that code in PHP and JavaScript. Like I identify a problem there. There is some alienation because not a lot of people know PHP and JavaScript. And you also have to go through code review, which is very complicated for understandable reasons. And actually, when I was writing the proposal for global templates, I tried to address this. Like I tried to make the proposal in such a way that the experience of publishing the template code as a wiki page and making it immediately usable, it remains as it is now. So as not to create this alienation and to add more layers of Git and source code and automatic testing and code review and so on. Like I really don't want these, even though they have a lot of advantages for stability. I don't want to add these layers. So I hope that these helps convince some people. I'm honestly, sincerely very interested in the opinions of the people who care about quality of information and care about their local ideas. I don't want to say, oh, these people block all the good ideas. No, like I'm sincerely interested in their opinions and how can this be better? I don't know if I can make everybody happy, but I do hope to make as many people as possible happy. I'm sincerely interested in opinions and addressing issues and fixing them and not treating things like, oh, that's a blocker. This label cannot be translated, and because of that we're not going to have global templates at all. No, like I want to identify the blockers and fix them, even if it's complicated.
Yeah, I have maybe a small question to Aharoni. I am really interested in the translatable models project, and I want to know if this project is already working.
No, it's not yet deployed. It is in active development. Code is being written for this by engineers in the MediaWiki platform. It will hopefully be deployed in the coming months. I cannot give you a date, but if you want more information about this, it's on MediaWiki.org. Just type translatable modules in the search box, and it's there. Yes. There's also a video presentation I made a few months ago about this. So yeah, it's in active development by engineers. The first projects where this will be enabled are probably Wikidata and Commons. That's how I imagine it. Wikidata, Commons, Meta, and MediaWiki.org. But yeah, Wikidata and Commons are probably the most important ones, and they will probably be enabled early, but I cannot tell you exactly why, but hopefully in the coming months.
Because it would be really nice if we had it, because WikiVoyage I'm working on, it's a small project, and we have smaller than the German WikiVoyage, like Spanish WikiVoyage, and now we are supporting the Spanish WikiVoyage, but my knowledge of Spanish is zero, and that's why it would be nice to us to have some tools to make the translation of our strings. And how to do this to work properly with your project.
Yeah, I'm actually not sure that it will be possible to use it on WikiVoyage, at least initially, maybe later. But yeah, this is definitely the problems that we are trying to address. Now, I'm seeing an interesting question in the chat from Ed Summers. The tension between smaller wikis and larger ones is interesting. I'm curious, why is the participation of larger wikis, for example, English, is so important? I kind of spoke about this already, but I'm happy to speak about this again because it's super important. And I'll give you an example. So as I mentioned, we have just a couple of minutes left, and I'll be happy to close with that. As I mentioned, I'm involved in the development of the content translation extension. This is an example. Content translation extension is an extension for creating articles in Wikipedia by translating them from another language. And it probably won't surprise anybody that the most popular source language for translating articles is English. Because of that, you can derive from that the English Wikipedia templates are the most demanded templates when you translate articles. When you translate articles, you need to translate the prose and the templates in some way. And if the English Wikipedia templates are not easy to share, then it makes translation harder to all the languages, because English is the most common source language in general, and for most languages, it's the most common source language, like for each language. There are some exceptions, but for most languages, it's English. So that's just one example of why English Wikipedia templates are so important. There are many others, but we're out of time. But thanks a lot for the questions. I'm available. I'm around. Etherpad is open. I look at the Etherpad also. I'm easy to find. Go to globaltemplates.mediawiki.org. Thanks a lot for listening. Thanks a lot to all the panel participants. It was great. And thanks for the organization. Thank you.
We had Andy with a raised hand. Maybe just very quickly.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, I think some of the issues about take-up might be easier to think about if, instead of thinking about templates that place a lot of content in an article, we start to think about small Lua modules that do simple things, functions like trimming coordinates to 6 decimal places, or validating an ISBN or an ORCID ID or something like that. And there are a lot of projects that don't have somebody to write functionality at that level. So we can make those sorts of things available globally, and then over time they will get combined and enlarged on, and we'll end up with templates that produce info boxes or display tables in articles or whatever it might be. But when you start to think about the small functionality, then the arguments against having centralized templates disappear.
Amir, any reply, or shall we wrap things up there?
No, this makes a lot of sense. Also, like 2 or 3 years ago, I created a page on Meta. I think the title is something like "Which templates should be global" or something like that. It was like my very early exploration of this idea, and people brought up ideas there, and it's like they correspond a lot to what Andy just said, I think. So yeah, but I think that the organizers here probably really want us to wrap up. So thanks a lot to everybody, and I'm very open to more questions, but probably after the session.